Welcome again to the Colors of Prague. My name is Louis Paul, and this is the collector's guide, let's say, to progressive rock recordings of the past, present, and future, let's say, as well as live shows that have to deal with progressive rock. Um, this is season 2, episode 16 of the Colors of Prague. So we've been at this. I've been at this for a while, and what I do, again, it's a bit of time in between each program that I do. So to reiterate, I discuss prog rock recordings from all around the world: Italy, the U.S., the U.K., Germany, Norway, etc., etc. We are on Facebook, The Colors of Prague. We are on YouTube, The Colors of Prague, and we are on Podbean as The Colors of Prague. So we are audio, visual for all of those. So anyone who's been following us in the past few months at least knows that there were severe audio issues with some of these recordings, and that was due to the wacko upload through Podbean. And then they transferred it over right away to YouTube, and I couldn't tweak the sound, so I actually deleted those. I redid one, that was the last show, and I'm redoing another one because they've been deleted. So it should be easier for me to go through this because I've done it a few times. So this show, I'm going to begin talking about Conqueror. This band here, sorry for the glare, there you go. Istintno from 2003. They're an Italian band, formed in Sicily in 1994, but they released their first album, this one, in 2003. The lineup was Simona Regano on vocals and keyboards, synthesizers, Gaetano Scarcella on guitar, Tony Rose on bass, and Natalie Rosso on drums and vocals. This is a contemporary Italian band. All songs on the CD are in Italian language, and it will appeal to those with the fondness of symphonic prog. Lots of keyboards, flute, things like that. In later recordings, Conqueror will also sing in English very well, I might add. But for this early release, they are singing only in Italian. They take from their musical influences the best of the 70s Italian prog scene, swirling keyboards, guitar playing. It all makes for a pleasant listen. And when I mean they take from the influences the early prog scene in Italy in the 70s, like PFM, Banco, Neutrals, and as well as Genesis, and yes, of course, and they are not Italian, as everyone knows. But they pull influences in. They decide to have their own band to create this sound, which is very appealing. It's very almost like laid back, quite nice. The band would have many lineup changes over the years, while Simona Regano, pretty much the primary band leader, has stayed on. She has a really nice voice, by the way. And later, Sofia Ferraro later joined on saxophone, flute, and other wind instruments. So I really like Conqueror, and I just want to describe this. There's 8 tracks on this CD, many of them over 7 minutes, some closer to 10. And it's quite a good listen. This was released in Italy on the Radio Diffusion label. Not quite sure if it's their label or it's indie in Italy. But anybody wanting to know more about Conqueror, I mean, I'm sure you could find something at the usual progressive rock outlets online, Symphonic, Doug Larson, or YouTube. You can also try Discogs. But if you want to learn more about their sound, please feel free to ask me. Next, I have Banco Del Mutual Soccorso, one of the great Italian prog bands. This release is called Nuda. It's a double release, by the way. So Banco, for short, formed in Italy in 1969. It released their self-titled debut in 1972. They have a bit of an avant-garde sound for the uninitiated. But nevertheless, this is symphonic prog, often very melodic, and originally led by longtime singer Francesco Di Giacomo, who clearly took the country's fondness for opera and grand expression and vocalized that in his unique singing style. Francesco Di Giacomo is well regarded the world over as one of the great singers of Prague, especially in Italian prog bands. Note should be made of his unique singing style, which is very expressive. Some might say operatic, which is why I mentioned that. And the band also originally had two keyboardists in the Nocenzi brothers, Vittorio Nocenzi and Gianni, really making quite the sound. So imagine musically something like Symphonic Yes with two keyboardists going at the same time. Very interesting sound. So Nuda from 1997 only retains the singer Di Giacomo and Vittorio Nocenzi in the lineup from the original days. It's a two-disc set on the Italian EMI label. Disc 1 is a studio album of revised near-acoustic versions of songs chosen from Banco's huge back catalog. And then there's one new tune, Nudo, which is in 3 parts, like a suite. And part 1 is 7 minutes, part 2 is 4 minutes, part 3 is 5 minutes, and you can see here, Nudo. So the rest of these are revisions of earlier Banco songs done in this kind of more laid-back style for the band, almost acoustic, but not quite. Disc 2 is a live album. It features 6 tracks from a Japan gig in 1997. Another 6 are split between 2 live gigs in Italy in 1989 and 1995. It's a bit of a stripped down sound, but not as near acoustic as disc 1 of Nuda. I quite like this. I didn't at first because it's interesting that later Banco Del Mutual Soccorso albums, they tried to roll with the times. They kind of veered toward the pop sounds that were very popular in Italy, and they kind of veered toward everybody did disco at some point in time in the late 70s, early 80s. And more electronica and dance music as well later on. Francesco Di Giacomo passed away, but the band still soldiers on, and more on that later on. They have a new recording due out late October, actually within about 2 weeks from now. It'll be interesting to see what the band has come up with now. So that is Nuda. Next, Curved Ear. And I'm going to speak of the Phantasmagoria album. Yeah, that's quite nice. You don't get any glare on that. This is another 2 CD set. Curved Ear were originally formed in England in 1970. And the band played on and off thereafter. Sonia Christina was the lead vocalist with Daryl Way on violin, Francis Monkman on keyboards, and they had a most unusual sound in the early years, a mix of acoustic folk and progressive rock. Sounds like Renaissance, but still a little different than Renaissance. Phantasmagoria from 1972 falls under the banner of eclectic prog. Basically, it's the same lineup as I mentioned earlier with other musicians, and it delivers a record filled with odd jazz, time signatures, and songs as seen in the songs composed by Daryl Way and Monkman. While the previous two Curved Air albums, including a debut, reflected a slightly gentler sound, on Phantasmagoria there's a lot more horns, quite a lot of them, and the CD almost sounds Straubs-like. And in a way, it sounds like Sonia Christina's trying to catch up with the band because they have near jazz time signatures going on. So why is it a two-disc set? I'll tell you. Disc 1 is a remaster of the original Phantasmagoria. Oh, by the way, this was on Esoteric, recently released in 2018 via Cherry Records. So, again, Disc 1 is a remaster of the original Phantasmagoria with 3 bonus tracks, including one version in Italian of the song Melinda. Melinda, more or less, was a very popular song for Curved Air. And the band was very popular in Italy, as most progressive rock bands were in the 70s, and in France. Disc 2 is a DVD, and it features the band live on Belgian television, 5 tracks from that, and Austrian TV, 3 tracks from that. And it's remastered, but you have the audio and the video for this. So, quite interesting. If you're not familiar with Curved Air, I really strongly suggest you check out some stuff. There's plenty of material online. Quite an interesting band that doesn't get much respect or airplay at all, even in retrospect. But I highly recommend them. I actually saw them live on one of the earlier Cruise to the Edge programs. Cruises. Next we have the Steve Rothery Band. This is Live in Rome. 2014, so it's one of the newer recordings. Steve Rothery is the co-founder of Marillion, yes, and he's its longtime guitarist and songwriter. He released his first solo album, an instrumental one, with 2014's The Ghost of Pripyat. And Steve Rothery, beside being a Marillion, also played with other bands. He had an on-again, off-again association with another band. But he really didn't go solo until he did The Ghost of Pripyat in 2014 and toured. So this is an atmospheric and haunting record with some on the studio version. There's some assistance, The Ghost of Pripyat I'm talking about, with some assistance from Steve Hackett and Steven Wilson. But Rothery toured Italy with guitarist Dave Foster, bassist Joachim Halemi, and drummer Leon Farr. Short European tour. And guests Richard Romano, keyboardist of Rhino Strain, Manuela Malanese, who performs with Pink Floyd cover bands in Europe, as well as Genesis, I'd like to add that, and Alessandro Carmisi from The Night Watch and The Watch. So, very interesting sound, Steve Rothery, he composed every song on this as a reflection of what was going on in his head, so about people, about places, and he introduces each song on the live CD and accompanying DVD. I must add, this is a 3-disc set, by the way. CD1. CD1 is pretty much live, The Ghosts of Pripyat. CD2 is some well-chosen Marillion songs and a few Ranastrain songs. And DVD 3 has a combination of both of those. That's the third disc is a DVD of the live performance. Unfortunately, not the full set. I wish they probably could have added it on there, but they kind of cherry picked. Why Ranastrain is really not mentioned anywhere here is a bit of a puzzle. Maybe it has to do with licensing. This appeared on the, I believe, Inside Out, also from 2014. Inside Out is pretty much the small label that's been dealing with a lot of progressive rock from everywhere. Believe me, Yes releases through Inside Out because nobody else wants to deal with it. So, not the Marillion sounds you are familiar with. This Steve Rothery stuff is very, as I said, very atmospheric, very melodic, and in a way, it's almost like soundtracks to. There's a bit of that spaghetti western feel, but not quite. The instrumental part of prog rock without so much keyboards until they get to the Marillion part of the show and the Ranastrain part of the show. But it reminded me a lot of this band from the west coast of America called the Mermen. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Mermen. They have about 4 or 5 guitar players in their lineup, and it's a shifting roster of what musician is with the band at any given point in time. And the Mermen are also a very instrumental band, and they just evoke all these images. Another thing with Steve Rothery's Live in Rome and The Ghost of Pripyat, his music evokes images of things. And he had said, particularly if my memory is correct, as he introduced one song, this was influenced by the father of someone close to him, and the father had been in one of the world wars, and this person had served in this particular country. And, he wanted to set up what made him write this and record this song. Back to Ranastrain, Steve Rothery actually guests with the band on a number of their albums, including their 3 Space Odyssey records, released in 2013, 2015, and 2018. And so it's interesting. They have a short, I'm sure they had a full set, but on this here, there's 2 or 3 audio songs of Ranastrain with Steve Rothery guesting live. And on DVD there's 2. So it's really nice. If you're a Marillion fan, why don't you have this? If you like good instrumental progressive music, you should have this. Steve Rothery band, really nice. And I mentioned earlier the Manuela Milanese and Alessandro Calmazzi, really fantastic singers, and it's going to make you really check out those people and search them out. So there's the Night Watch and the Watch. I'm not sure if Alessandro is still performing with the Watch. It doesn't appear on the most recent compact disc 7, but as much as I've been able to learn about that. Anyway, that's today's show. It's a redo, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. What you should do really now is try to search out this music and listen to it somewhere. Thanks again. Have a great day.